60% of our respondents said that they actually never check their tyres. And certainly never thought about the fact that they actually have to put some air into them occasionally. And you'll have seen some of the information that TyreSafe has outside about tyre pressures and the impact it has on a tyre when things are overinflated and underinflated. So we started thinking about correct inflation, and I had the opportunity to visit the PCL factory in Sheffield some time ago and look at some of the new technologies coming out of there. And I thought it would be great actually to get an expert on tyre inflation systems to come along and talk to us. So please welcome to the stage from PCL, the Sales Director, Simon Shorter. Simon.
Morning everyone. It's very rare I get the opportunity to talk to so many of you, or so many people about tyre inflation. It's one of those subjects that sort of get swept under the carpet and never discussed. But we're still here, we're still in Sheffield, we've been going there since 1938, doing various things on pneumatics, so it's nice to have the opportunity. I'm not saying we've got the same level as technology we've just seen with Hella, but I think most people appreciate that actually if your tyres aren't inflated and they're flat, then all that alignment, all that work, that 20 minutes setting up and doing it all properly, probably aren't going to work very well. So, so I think it's important. So my name is Simon Shorter, I run the OE and end user division at PCL. What I want to talk to you today about is, first of all, I'll talk to you a little bit about PCL, who we are and what we do. I then want to talk about the importance of correctly inflated tyres. Hopefully most of you already know, hopefully I'm preaching to the converted. But obviously, with TyreSafe and the other people, we need to get that message out into the public so that, tyres are important. Then I want to talk about how you manage tyre inflation safely and correctly in the workshops or out there on the roadside. And then I want to talk a little bit about, the developments and the work that we've been doing to try and improve the technology that we have in tyre inflation in specific applications and to move things forward. And also look at opportunities for retailers basically to make more money and offer better services and safety for their customers. So my objectives really are, one, try and improve safety in the workshop and out on the road for the car user. Secondly, look at decreasing costs for everyone concerned, both in the tyre shop itself and the nature of the operations that you're doing, but also for the freight and fleet people so that they can run their operations more effectively. Decrease the costs for everybody involved, and also look at increasing revenue for retailers, look at possible applications and areas where we're working where I think they can offer more and better services for the public. So first of all, who are PCL? We're part of a German group called Horn Group based in Flensburg in Germany. We're also part of another bigger German investment group. We focus on gases, two main ones being nitrogen and air. So we make a range of pneumatic equipment that deal with nitrogen and air. And really, our mantra is we're driven by air or gases, and we specialise in the management, monitoring, control, dispensing of gases. The two main ones being obviously nitrogen and air. Using leading technology. So obviously we've still got mechanical, but increasingly with electronics and software and communications, all that's being built into the equipment as we move forward. The other brand that we represent and look after is Tecaliment, which is all about fluids. And it's the same in terms of management, control and management of fluids. And that includes AdBlue, diesel, screen wash or other types of chemicals. We have a range of equipment for dispensing and managing those. And we represent both of those brands in the UK. So I met Stefan about 2 years ago and when we set this division up. And really, PCL has been going a long time, and I think when I sat down and looked at some of the other things I've been doing, I've been setting up plants in China and in India, and I came back to the UK and I looked at saying, well, I think we need to be more market-driven, more focused on what the customers are here, and how the market's developing. Tyres are getting more complicated, the sensors are getting more complicated. How can we integrate our equipment to make it more market-driven? And so one of the things I wanted to do was try and improve the operations that were out there for tyre inflation. So trying to make it safer, trying to make the service efficiency higher, trying to reduce operational costs, improve logistics, which can be a big cost for the fleet companies that are out there. Try and look at some new markets. Also try and make our products, as I said earlier, more market driven. So looking at OEs and end users, what are the problems you're having? And one of the things I was finding is we weren't talking to the right people. You know, we had a range of products which were great what they were doing, but they weren't meeting all the needs of the customers that were out there. And I wanted to make that, so we need to engage with more people, a wider audience to try and improve what we were doing. And then also I wanted to look at some new markets. So aviation, we started to do some work on, and we've launched a range. And one of my colleagues here with me today, he was at the airport show in Germany yesterday, and we've launched a range of aviation products, trying to turn that market towards digital rather than old-fashioned mechanical products. And then the other big sector for us is on the forecourts. So internationally, we sell probably to about 80 countries around the world. You'll see our equipment everywhere from Dubai all the way through to China or USA, etc. You'll see our digital inflation or mechanical inflation equipment. You know, and we wanted to develop our range there and move it forward. But I think, and I'll come to later on, that market's developing and changing, and I think it offers up other opportunities for retailers to offer some of those services that are on the forecourts in a different environment and to take the revenue from that. So in terms of safety, why are correct tyre pressures important in the tyre? And I think there's four main reasons for that, one of which is clearly safety. If your tyres are not inflated, and I'll look at the video in a minute, you cannot control the car as well as you ought to. Fuel consumption can also be reduced. Tyre performance will also be impacted, and also the logistics. If you're running a fleet and your tyres going out, then you will be impacted.
Perhaps more important than fuel cost, underinflated tyres can also significantly reduce driver safety. This course represents a country road with an obstacle in the middle of the road. Our car, with correctly inflated tyres, reacts and easily avoids the danger. The car's tyre pressures are then reduced by just 6 psi, a typical level of underinflation found on many fleet vehicles. When the test is repeated, it's clear to see how the reduction in tyre pressure leads to lower levels of grip, handling and control. In a real-life situation, this could have caused severe injury or even death.
So I'd just like to thank TyreSafe for that video. Clearly, I hope Christine's car's now okay. She must be thrashing it to death with all getting people to drive it. So, but as you can see, the car safety is impacted. Obviously, the main thing that is carrying the load in the tyre is the air. And obviously, if you've not got enough air in there, it's not going to be able to carry the load properly. So you'll see that, having the right pressure in there, recommended tyre pressure, allows you to maintain your vehicle stability. Some people call the tyre, obviously, the fingertips or the palm, which is controlling the car. Clearly, it should be the only thing that's touching the ground. So it's actually crucial to what you're doing. Clearly, as the graph on the bottom there shows, braking will also, and I've got other videos that probably most of you have seen, an impact of you slowly increasing the pressure in the tyres until eventually you smash into a plastic wall, in the dummy. So, and it doesn't need to decrease much until that happens, and you really cannot control the car. So tyre inflation affects braking performance, but it also affects tyre wear and fuel. And obviously there's a range of stats that you will see, but basically you'll see that in terms of tyre performance, for every 10% the tyre is deflated below the level that is recommended, you will get 10% higher tyre wear. In terms of fuel consumption, then the 6 psi, which tends to be the norm, everyone talks about the average that people tend to under-deflate the tyres, and that's what it was in that video, 6 psi. You tend to spend about 3% more fuel per annum. So you're talking probably about 150 pounds per year, maybe more, depending on what sort of vehicle you've got. But it all adds up. If you see the stats out there from TyreSafe, basically that adds up for the car owners. We're spending an extra 600 million per year, in wasted money that we could have been using something else. My view is, as tyre shop owners or whatever, we should be giving the best service to our customers we can and making sure that they feel that when the tyre, go out, they're the right pressure and our equipment is accurately calibrated, so that we don't see some of the scenes that you can see there in the bottom right-hand corner. But despite all our efforts, 35% of tyres out there on the road are at least 8 psi underinflated. And that video shows you what 6 psi, 8 psi, it's just going to make it worse. So we're driving around in cars that are not at optimum safety. There's a quick diagram of what happens on the left-hand side. Clearly you've got maximising your fuel consumption efficiency. You've got the right tire, mileage on the tyre wear. On the right-hand side, you can overinflate your tyres. Clearly, some say that will make them, you've got less contact with the road. Tends to be disputable as to whether that will increase fuel consumption. But what it does do is it wears the tread right out in the middle of the tyre, quite quickly. The norm is obviously set there. The most commonplace, when people are driving around in underinflated cars, using more fuel, burning up that rubber. So people say to me, well, I can tell when my tyres are underinflated. It's not a problem, it's easy. I just give them a kick and it's fine. I have a look at them and I know. And I've been all around the world. I've been from Indonesia to India and I've tested guys on this basis. They can't tell. They really cannot tell. You cannot tell. And if you look at that picture there, 25% underinflated. And if you look at it closely, you can't really see whether that tyre is just at 25%. You can just about start to see whether that tyre is underinflated or not. So if anybody tells me they can judge it, I don't believe them. And the people I've put to the test have not been able to do it. And it's becoming increasingly more difficult with the narrow rims that you see. It's even more difficult to tell whether that tyre is correctly inflated or not. So you can then look at the tyre, and if you look at the top right-hand side, you can see the classic cases of underinflation, just the creasing on the tyre, damaging that tyre, and leading into it, eventually being dangerous if you're carrying on that way. If it's underinflated enough, the tyre at the bottom, you can see, could come off from the rim, which is really what you don't want to be seeing. I don't want to be driving a car like that. So we've covered safety, we've covered fuel, we've covered tyre wear, but also the other point is logistics. I'm not sure if you're aware, 2.4% of the roads, only 2.4% of the roads are motorways and trunk roads. But those roads carry 33% of the cars. And it covers 67% of the freight on those same roads. So they're pretty congested already. And obviously, if you have a blowout, and it's serious, it can be really expensive. Not just to you who were maybe in that vehicle that had the blowout, but to UK PLC. Because if you have a blowout on a motorway, it closes the motorway for 2 hours. You're talking at £750,000 cost to the UK economy of that happening. Obviously, if you're a haulier, and that's happened to you, and your truck's stuck on the side of the road, you're not able to meet your customer demands, the penalties can be pretty significant. You've then got knock-on, that fleet vehicle's not going to get there, etc. It's pretty horrendous. So it's pretty important from my perspective that to get your customer service right, to keep your drivers safe, to keep your vehicle protected, is vital to having an efficient operation. But sadly, that picture is all too true. Most of you probably wash your cars more than you check your tyres, which is pretty sad really, some of the things we've just seen. So that covers the safety out on the road. I also want to talk a little bit about safety in the workshop. And some of those things you can see happen. Obviously there's a mine fire over there with a tyre. I don't know whether it was using nitrogen or not. There's a guy there, it's an American video actually, who's seating his bead by putting lighter fluid inside his car, and it obviously expands it. Pretty scary operation. I wouldn't want to be near any guys that are doing that. And obviously the one there is a cage, obviously it's protected, but it's exploded. Before we get into a bit more in detail of that, I want to make it very clear. In the UK, there are no approval mechanisms for tyre inflation equipment. None at all. So you can use anything you like. You can use any quality equipment. That's not the situation in Europe. Most of the countries have an approval mechanism for inflation equipment. It's type tested first of all, then each individual gets approval. It then has to be, each piece of equipment then has to be approved when it comes in, and then it's inspected every 2 years. For example, if it's Germany. France, Portugal, etc. have legislation which needs to be adhered to. Some of the American states have the same. California is obviously pretty strict with the Californian Resources Board, set a standard that everyone's got to adhere to with the equipment, and they're quite rigorous in that. But in the UK, there is nothing. which is pretty sad. You know, we could lobby for it, but you know, I think it'd be pretty hard for us to do that. You know, you can't do part walk downs. I think tyre inflation is going to come down here on that list. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is things are changing. For me, things are changing in the marketplace for tyre inflation. Tyre forecourts are reducing rapidly. You know, in 1990 there were 20,000 forecourts where you could go and get your fuel. Now there's 8,500 and continuing to decline. So most of us, if you're my age or older, but you're used to being easy, find a garage easy to do where your tyres were, to fill up with water, to do your screen wash, etc. That's not the case anymore. You know, most of us have to queue up for fuel, etc. You know, and I think that decline will continue. So, you know, where do you go for those services? For fuel, for screen wash? The other one that's coming on is obviously AdBlue for diesel. Where are you going to go and get that? And I think there's an opportunity for retailers. It doesn't have to be a forecourt. Why can't other people do that? You know, you're not going there, so, you know, there's not the opportunities just to nip round the corner anymore. Sorry, the other things that I want to talk about, the other things that are impacting us are self-driving cars. Clearly, who owns those self-driving cars? You know, it could be Google, it could be Uber or whatever. It may not be the individual. So where are those cars going to go back for their servicing sector? Where are they going to get their cars pumped up? It could be that the car does it automatically. You go into the office, the car nips up, checks if it's detected the tyre through the TPMS system, just nip off, get the tyres, come back, and it's all ready for you to go. So things are changing. The other thing that's coming on is obviously more and more sensors, as Hella's just showed us. You know, there's the connected tyre regime. So we want our equipment to be connected to that, so that the equipment knows what's coming in and it can reflect it to the right level, etc., to what you need. So let's look a little bit about the safety in the tyre shop itself. This is a short video just to clip of things that you may face.
These pliers perpetuating and accelerating the problem like a zip being undone. Finally, there aren't enough pliers left to hold the compressed air inside, leading to a rapid readjustment of pressure. When this happens, the compressed air surges from the tyre into the surrounding area with great speed and tremendous force.
So as you can see, tyres are pretty dangerous things if not handled properly. You know, you need the right equipment to do that. You know, I just want to briefly touch on some, you know, key equipment, I think, you know, things you need to look at for professionals. And I think some of them get overlooked. First of all, it's compressor and the airline. You know, do you have the right pressure in the flows to do what you're doing? I've seen many shops where they're saying, I can't wait, I can't get to the pressure I need for this truck, I can't get to 140 psi. And then you start talking about, well, what's the size of your compressor, how many airlines you got in it, you go, now I can see what your problem is. Also, the other thing I see around the world is, and I think most of you will experience, just dirty airlines. I've seen some workshops where it's almost like they're trying to create a tractor tyre. You know, with ballast in it, it's got so much water. And you give them a nice product, say like our Dropout, and they put it on the line, and then you know, they fit it, and it's gone away, and then they start running it. And they said the thing's not working, it's just pouring out water. And I said, well, it's because it's working really well, because you've got so much oil, so much water and oil stuff in your tank. You know, you need to sort it out. And that's not good for tyres. We don't want water in tyres, in normal tyres. Clearly the hose needs to be of sufficient working pressure that you're working to. Quite often I've seen in various places, it's not. You know, it's a risk you're taking. You know, it also needs to be flexible, give enough room, so you can stand away from the tyre, so that it doesn't explode in some of those situations we've got. Clearly also, if you're working in a Porsche or a Ferrari, you want non-marking hose. It's obviously pretty costly if you mark one of those cars. Obviously close to my heart is the inflator. You really need to be using, you know, reliable, robust, you know, effective and safe equipment. It's, you know, I don't think it's expensive, but it costs a lot of money if your thing doesn't work very well. You keep redoing the operation and checking it, you know, and all our certificates, all our equipment is calibrated to a national standard. You know, and all our rigs are then calibrated back to a national laboratory. So you can trace it all back and test it so that the equipment is accurate. and provably accurate, whether it be our plant in the UK, or our plant in India, or our plant in China. They all have to measure against that Chinese national laboratory standard for the test rigs that we use. Clearly there's cages, and obviously the priority of those we've seen in that video. Without those, really dangerous. And I don't, and we really recommend that you use those in the situations where it's important. Connectors, everyone dismisses it. Oh, I'll just buy any old connector. Save a lot of time if you get a good connector. So many times I've seen them fiddle in, trying to clip it on, working with it, trying to make it work. Just get a good one. Save you a lot of time and effort. The other thing that's come along recently is because some of the TPMS valves are quite thin, they break off. And we had a discussion with Jaguar, we worked with Jaguar, and we come up with it's out on the desk there as a flexible hose TPMS. It's particularly important where you've got a fixed hose reel because the torque on the thing snaps the TPMS valve off. It's a very simple thing. They increasingly go on to forecourts, you'll see them around. The other good thing about it, it makes this with the bendy bit, it's really easy on bike tyres, which I get complaints about all the time. I've had to bend a connector to get into through the calipers, etc. Just simple things. And obviously there are other equipment, tyre changes, impact wrenches. My view is always go for quality. It'll save you a lot of time in the workshop and effort, and save you 2 weeks later then having to buy another one, and then another one, and then another one. Just get a good one first time round. So obviously PCL's got a range of equipment for tyre inflators, from fixed through to the towers at the end. So how are we looking at the future? What's the next generation? What have we been working on recently? And what's come out of the division of work that we've been doing since we set it up? And on the fixed tyre inflator, we started working with a tyre manufacturer, particularly for the truck and bus market, and our product wasn't quite working in the way they wanted to. So we looked at the software, we listened to what they said, and we adapted the software to work in a way that was much safer than in the workshop. So basically, if they felt there was a problem and they thought the tyre was going to blow out, then there's an automatic safety button that will deflate the tyre completely. So they don't have to go back to the tyre, try and take it out as the thing's creaking or whatever. They don't have to do it. So it's safe. And that's just one example of where I see the division moving forward. And I put the issue out there to you. If you've got some issues like that you feel like it could improve, then yeah, because of the electronics and the software, we can adapt it. It's not a problem anymore. Whereas historically, you wouldn't, with mechanical, no chance. The next version of this particular product, which is the cube up there, is going to be a connected option. So basically, it'll be Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. It can talk to the other equipment around. It can talk back to a mainframe or whatever. But it also can, particularly for roadside assistance, you can have an app on your phone or on another handheld device. You can then control the cube, which could be in your van, and just change the pressure, adapt it remotely, and it will inflate the tyre to that pressure. So you don't then have to wander along the motorway back to the vehicle to reset the thing. It's also really quick, so you can set the pressure. It's very accurate and quick. So basically, it's a lot safer for those roadside drivers that are using it. That information, because you've got the communication portal in there, then basically you can then communicate that information back to a base. So say it's Downtons or whatever, Downtons want to know what's been done on their truck or whatever. That information can then be communicated back to the base so we know where we are and what we're doing. So all that information is available and traceable. So basically from a safety point of view, it's all traceable. The work that you're doing as a roadside company can be documented. So the contract, you can show what you're doing and how you're doing it. The other thing we've developed in the last couple of years is a whole new range of handheld tyre inflators. The Mark III, which is the first one on the left there, we developed, we made it larger, we made it faster, but it's also a lot more robust. So I think the returns we get on that are absolutely negligible now. So once you've got it, it's fit and accurate and working. This year, that same robustness we've then put into a digital format, which makes it much easier to see, it's much safer to use, and it's got a bright blue backlight. So basically, if you're on the roadside, you're in a dark workshop, or you're trying to do something at night, you can see the pressure, you can see what you're doing, it will toggle between the various pressures. Just trying to make things safer, faster, and more efficient. I think all of those devices do it. So the other area where I was talking about, where I think there's opportunities for retailers and for people to get more involved, is on both nitrogen and air. We've got a fixed tower unit. A lot of these have gone into obviously forecourts around the world with Shell and BP, etc. But I think with the changing marketplace in terms of what's happened to forecourts, what's happening to cars going electric, etc. Why would, if I've got an electric car, why do I want to go to a Shell, Shell garage? I can get that car. So therefore, where do I get my other ancillary services? So basically, I think this equipment is more relevant maybe to other types of retailers. You get your tyres done elsewhere. And you can run a machine, it can be cashless, so there's low security risk. But also because they're communicated, it can communicate, you can control them and manage them, you can see what they're taking, so you can manage the operation. At the same time, we developed with one tyre company in terms of putting a QR code on the front. So basically you can, with your smartphone, you can pull that, you can go into a tyre manufacturer's app or website, choose your tyres. When you know your pressures, you can tell you the pressures. At the same time, obviously, it could be a retailer. You can take the details of the customer. You can promote them other tyres if you want, and say you need to go and get it fitted up or whatever. So it gives you an opportunity to communicate with the customer, to give them a better level of safety, because it tells you what tyre pressures you need and what tyres they might need to change or whatever. But it also gives you an interface with the customer, which is important. Any touches you can get with the customer, make the most of it. Absolutely make the most of it. And this equipment will help you do it. And we're working with other people, and we like to talk with other people about how that might be more effective for some of your operations. So in terms of our equipment, in terms of fixed, clearly we do nitrogen, and there's an increasing range of nitrogen equipment paid for, going on forecourts, not so much in the UK, but in other countries around the world, in the Middle East and in Asia. We also do a range of AdBlue, so there's an AdBlue dispenser here for cars, not for trucks, for cars, so it's low flow. Again, you can see there's a coin mech on there, but it can be cashless or anything, so you can sell AdBlue to a customer. They can come in and they can do it themselves and take the money. And again, it can be cashless, coin, whatever you like. We also make a range of other AdBlue equipment, so in the workshop, AdBlue is coming. It's going to increase. Since 2016, all the cars have to have AdBlue to be Euro 6 engines. So, where are you going to get your AdBlue? Where do you get it from? Does it have to be a retail forecourt? I'm not so sure. So there's all those revenue opportunities I've talked about, which will be changing in the future. Jump on the bandwagon. So how do I see the future? My view is tyre inflators will be smart. That's what we're making them. To receive and send tyre inflation information and pressure information, and to make them safer and easier to use and communicate what you've done. There'll be online taking. We make inflation equipment for all markets. So all those markets can have online information. Cars, trucks, planes, they like the idea of being communication, having Bluetooth information transported back to their base. We're happy to do, we're looking at bespoke tyre inflation. All of you have different applications. You want to do things in different ways, you have different, whether you're working on a port, you're working in a mine or whatever, there are different needs and requirements. We can come up and work with you to give you something that you need. So my aim is really just to present PCL, working with the automotive and tyre industry, and through our distribution partners, because obviously they're really vital, there are eyes and ears out there, to deliver the safest and most cost-effective inflation solutions to you. We want to help you increase your revenue, and through cost reduction, drive your profits up. That's what we're here to do. We've got a booth out there, so if you've got some opportunities you want to talk to us about, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.